So first of all, both of you, thank you very much for being here. I think with Tim, who is overseeing emerging technology at Volkswagen Group, we have a perfect insider someone who can really represent the automotive industry at large in terms of emerging technologies and in specific immersive technologies. And second of all, we have Martin HERDINA, former CEO of Wikitude. Then you guys have been acquired by Qualcomm, and you basically know the industry and the enterprise level through all the different players there. So we have both someone who is from the inside of the automotive industry and someone who is from the inside of the XR industry. And just to give you a brief outlook, I will start with some general questions. Then we go into a deep dive, a couple questions to you, then a couple deep dive questions to you, and then we go out, and obviously we want to talk briefly at the end about wearables and more about smart glasses. So it's not only about XR today, and I just don't want to miss the opportunity to hear your thoughts on what is this device category doing and how it's going to be implemented in the automotive industry. So first question to both of you in a more general way. What has been the most relative, the most relevant innovation in our industry, in specific to XR? Tim, what was the most relative transformation, or what was the best thing that could happen from a marketing and sales perspective?
That's a very good question. To me, I'm looking more from a marketing perspective. My background is marketing, and what we tried out a lot. We tried out a lot with the different brands that we have in the Volkswagen Group. We have obviously Audi, Porsche, VW, Skoda, and so on. So luxury brands as well. We tried out XR use cases in the past years a lot, and we made some mixed experiences, I have to say. Especially a few years ago, we had rather bad experiences, to say it like that. I think there was a lot of hype going around, and we thought, hey, maybe we can solve this problem, but we didn't see the problems that came with it, right? So there was a bit of neglectance, especially if you're fully immersed, because one of the use cases that we tried out was really letting our people experience the cars. And then obviously we found that sometimes there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect sometimes between the dealer and the person who's standing next to it and looking at the car, and you couldn't really talk about it.
Okay, so you're referring to virtual reality in that?
In this case,
yeah.
And what I wanted to come back with you, what was the biggest invention that really changed in the past years? To me, it was a really mixed reality of really now we can be fully immersed, but we can also choose to be part in the room. Also for people that have problems with motion sickness, that solved a problem as well. So if you ask me, this is probably one of the things that made a major step for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we've been lucky to work with some of the automotive clients in this regards, and letting the customer being still connected to the real world really changed their acceptance to use the headsets in the dealerships or in a public environment. And Martin, from your perspective, what was the latest and greatest over the last 2 years? What do you think?
Well, I think from my perspective, there wasn't like a single major breakthrough invention over there. So to me, it was more of a kind of evolution of kind of things who have evolved, things who have kind of gained usage, things who have gained traction. And also, in a way, coming what Tim said, we have multiple streams that seem to merge sooner or later. So we finally found, like with smart glasses, like the Ray-Ban stories, we found a category, even though it's being part of the XR industry, Actually, it's not, but still, for us as an XR industry, it's still good to have such like well-selling device and so much money actually floating into the industry just from the whole smart glasses category. And the reason why money is floating in from that segment is simply because users are buying the device. And users are not just like buying the device, users are using the device on a daily basis. They keep making pictures, they keep interacting with that device. And this is a fantastic basis for many, many more use cases to come. When you think about like your personalized AI assistant on your nose, and I know this is like your closing, your closing topic, but still, I think that was the biggest development over the past 2 years, to have like those kind of categories of use cases tied to certain device types. You have the AI glasses, then you have like certain use cases that are ideal for virtual reality, and you talked about it very well. And then you have like the mixed reality as a kind of mixture between both. I'm still by far not, my ideal device has always been see-through AR glasses, and I've been lucky to kind of wear my first in 2011 when I was in Japan at the Epson headquarters and got the opportunity to wear the Epson BT100 glasses. And we are still not there, but the development on those 3 streams, AI glasses, mixed reality and virtual reality, and seeing those merge and have use cases developed for all 3 categories, that's very promising and exciting to me.
Thank you. One thing I love so much about the automotive industry is it has so many use cases. So there are the ones where you start with engineering, right? You stream content and you look at it, how the car could look like. You do design validation. Then you do engineering validation. You do training, maybe. You do maybe even sales training. Then we have marketing as well. And at the end, maybe even service. What of those pillars is for you the most promising in the future based on what's coming? And where do you see the biggest impact?
Shall I go first? Yeah. Well, it's hard to pick one, I have to say. And also, if I may use smart glasses already a bit earlier here, I think because to me it's a really different thing. Even though those 2 things merge a lot, I think both of them have different use cases in the automotive industry, but also everywhere else. I think if we think about the human brain, we have 2 eyes. We're thinking in 3D, right? So our brain functions this way. So everywhere where we need visual information, where we need to understand something because we are looking at something, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense to use XR in this case. On the other side, if we think about smart glasses, this is a tool where at the moment we see AI coming in there. It gives us a lot of information. So it's not a visual layer, it's rather facts that we get, even though, of course, we get also a view and we can also use this as well. But so if I would have to pick one category in automotive, I couldn't say honestly, because there's so many use cases in production. We have obviously design. Design was the first in our brands where we actually used VR headsets, where we tried this out because we thought, okay, this is where it's really important to see what's happening visual, where we really have to take people with us, where we have time to use it. But obviously, with the headsets getting lighter, with the entry getting easier, I can imagine a lot of other use cases at the dealership, in after services, everywhere else. I couldn't really stop and I couldn't really pick one.
Okay, so Volkswagen or the brands are not like betting on the one thing, like saying in-car entertainment or maybe like sales at the dealership. That's the one that creates the most value because we have shorter lead times or higher, I don't know. So you're looking at all those things and it's difficult to...
Maybe it sounds a bit too positive if I say it like that. I think as you said it correctly as well, we're not there yet, right? The perfect device that is really fully capable of what we want from it isn't there. Yeah. So I think right now it's the time to deal with what are we having? We're doing huge jumps in this industry. So every year we see new use cases with this, but obviously not everything works. And right now we try, okay, which of the devices work with what? We learn some things work, some things don't work yet, but we're not there yet to say, oh, all the use cases that we have in mind can be done with this device.
Martin, what about you? What's the killer use case? I mean, you're also working with Hololight, so XR streaming is something that you are very familiar with. Is there like an innovation in that area that really drives promising result for automotive clients?
No, yes, no. so, of course, no. There is no huge innovation in this front.
Like 5G Ultra or something.
No, it's like as in my previous answer, right? It's like an evolution, and when I was on the Qualcomm side, we've been excited about use cases that went out to the masses, and that's why smart glass is exciting because we are selling chips in the millions. Now on the other side, right, when you talk about automotive, and I'm not so the expert on the marketing side, I have to admit, but like on the enterprise side, on the productivity side, so and as you're referring to Hololight, so we have like 120 clients or something actively using.
How many of those are from the automotive industry, like in percentage? Half?
Not half, but like a decent number, and. There is all about value creation, and we don't talk about huge number of units at this point, but we really see value being created. And as Tim mentioned about like design reviews, hey, this is actively being used by not hundreds, but like by dozens of people like in the respective factories and kind of design units. Or like an example I really like a lot, like one of the clients I like to refer to is a company doing like in the aviation space, doing plane interiors. And for them, it doesn't make sense to use full automation because like they make 30 planes per year. And every plane is a bit different. So it doesn't make sense to configure some robotic automation. But they need like trained personnel, which is hard to find. So this means they have like efficiency increase of like factor 10x, just to have like assisted reality kind of to make mechanics and workers support where to kind of drill the holes and where to kind of put the certain aspects in there. And as mentioned, this is nothing where we talk about hundreds of workers, but we talk about like a dozen that use it on a daily basis, very actively, and really you have a very clearly measurable return of investment, and that's very exciting. And automotive is like very similar in that respect.
So I really try to figure out what makes those automotive clients tick, so you guys in the development economy can jump on the bandwagon and focus on those areas. But it's, as you see, it's not easy to pinpoint which is the best field to work in. But Tim, I don't want to give up on that. So from your group right perspective, give me one example that created a really value within the Volkswagen Group. So was there, like, we saw this Apple Vision Pro Porsche case. Is that something that really nailed it, created a huge value? Or was it Cupra that really had an impact? So give me one champion or one example.
Besides what we just talked about in design, where you cannot really say we basically made this kind of money with it or something like that. At the end of the day, we are a car company. We need to sell cars. So the hardest KPI that we can meet is selling cars, and this is actually why I think the use case that at Cupra and also at VW brand is a great use case. What is it? We had the problem, we were launching a car, but the car wasn't at the dealers yet. But we needed to generate pre-sales. So we had some really hard sales facts that we needed to meet. So the dealers needed to sell X amount of cars in the first month. There was a campaign launching, but the cars weren't ready. They were still being produced. Some of them were at some dealers, but most dealers didn't have cars. So what can you do? And there we worked together actually with you on a great concept to let people experience these cars at the dealership. Not only one or two dealership, but you probably know the numbers better than I do. But it was a very significant number across Europe. That we let people actually experience this, and this was it was adapted by the dealers surprisingly well, I have to say, because this is the exact use case in a way that we tried a few years earlier with the headsets that weren't there yet, which didn't work, where these headsets were standing at the dealer and were getting dusty because no one really wanted to use them. And that's why I think it's really important to keep up, to be informed of what's happening in this industry on a very, very active basis, so you know what is possible and what's not possible.
Okay, perfect. So actually I was going to do a couple questions just with you and then jump over to Martin, but I want to do ping pong, so ask you always the same questions from a different perspective. Martin, so you mentioned the revenue part it's really important for an automotive. Obviously, push sales in any way increases the revenue, so it's an important thing. But Martin, what you're doing is sometimes related to efficiency and cost reduction. What are we talking about? Like, I used to know that, or saw it in documentaries, how they carve the car from some materials and they make it really, and now we do it all digital. How much time, money, or like value does it create on the? Can you talk about that? Do you know that? Like, what is the value on the efficiency side there?
At a very high level. So what I referred to earlier. So I think one of the biggest benefits is the learning curve. So when I talked about the aviation use case, typically they work with workers with at least 5 years of experience, 5 years plus. With the help of assisted reality, they have like a 3-month onboarding and can be as efficient as a person that has like 5 years training on the job, and that's significant. Just like in times like these, where it's hard to find good personnel, hard to find people that are skilled and that have that, like the loyalty to stay on board. That's just like a massive increase in efficiency, and. When you refer to like one of Hololight's core products, it's called Space. It's a design review product that's very actively being used in the automotive space. So, for instance, BMW motorcycles, they use it on a daily basis. They have real designers that have like the weird aspect is they use HoloLens 2, which is like the only device they can currently work with. But still, they use HoloLens 2 devices and have the virtual model of a motorcycle. And they actively worked in a collaborative environment on the design of the upcoming motorcycle. And otherwise, they would need to do that on multiple computers or like on a drawing board. And this can be done in space, and that's way more efficient and visually appealing than they could do it before. And you mentioned the human thinks in 3D, and that's why it's specifically for design. That's a value. That's enormous that's being created here.
And I think collaboration is a good keyword as well, because obviously, for example, we have design centers all over the world. One in China, one in the US, one close to Wolfsburg in Europe, depending on the brand. And they need to work together. And if they can do this on a virtual model, obviously this is much more flawless.
I see. So it's basically monkey sees, monkey likes. So seeing something really works. But looking at the good thing and the positive thing, what are the challenges, obstacles? Like in your term, what is tough to scale it in marketing and sales? What holds you back? Why don't we see every dealer from all the car manufacturers using headsets out there? Because it makes sense, right? It's you just need a headset. You can visualize the car on all colors, variances, and why don't we see that? What is your take on that?
Yeah, good question. Why is not everybody in the world having a headset, right? So, tough question. I think at the end of the day, one of the major obstacles that we have is people need to experience it, right? I think there's a reason why some of the tech companies are saying their main KPI at the moment with their headsets is getting X amount of people to try these headsets. It's simply for example, when I had a meeting with the CMO about this topic, he said, "Oh yeah, but I've tried it, right? I've tried VR. I don't like it. It's too complicated."
I know that. So it's basically at least I think you're referring to Audi. I was also talking to Audi and say, "Hey guys, let's do it. You see how good it works?" And they say, "No, we tried it. They tried something totally different, right? They were really early." So they had a big headset with a cable attached to the computer, and it was VR and everything, controllers. They needed to really almost learn half an hour how to navigate in it. And they are burned, basically. So this person will not touch it anymore. I guess that's something. So we need to convince the people to give it a new chance. Yeah. And try the latest and greatest, because I think it significantly increased in terms of quality and acceptance. But Martin, in your terms, I can imagine when I never had a project that incorporated streaming yet, but when I tested it once, it was a couple of years ago. It was like really laggy and jumping around. Is that still a thing? Like, how can you scale it? Is it already like, is the cost still high per unit? Like, what's the obstacle? Like, what needs to change to make streaming something that every company has and works on?
Sure. Happy to answer that, but just like to make one step back first.
Okay.
The benefit of streaming, right? So why should you stream, right? And that's kind of tackling the questions of like obstacles in VR and enterprise. Number one is, of course, the lack of devices. So specifically, when you think about see-through devices, there is a bunch of like VR devices, but see-through devices, there's nothing out there since HoloLens 2. There are a few things coming, and like the spectacles, like some other kind of project that are currently in the pipeline. But that's the big obstacle, and of course, directly results to acceptance. So like personally, I'm not a VR guy at all. I don't like being closed out. I have some motion sickness topics. So that's kind of definitely one aspect. The second thing is like when you stream 3D, no, not stream, but when you render 3D content on a mobile device, typically it reaches its limitation very soon. Specifically when you have a device like HoloLens 2, which is 7 years old. So you cannot render complex models. And that's again like one of the streaming benefits. So this means you render the 3D model on the server, on the GPU, encode it into a video stream, and stream it down to your mobile device. So this means all the kind of processing and the calculation power is being outsourced to this GPU in the server. So this means you can experience much better looking and much more complex content than you could with local rendering. And the second big benefit, specifically in sensitive industries like defense, like automotive, I talked about like BMW planning upcoming models, right? So you don't want to have those data be leaked, right? So this means in many of those companies, it's the policy, you must not store 3D data on a personal device. So they have to be streamed. So this means nothing can really be traced back or can be stored on the device and leave the building. So that's the big reason why many companies use streaming to tackle those two or three challenges. And now to kind of the second part of it, or the real question. So you talked about kind of experience and being laggy and things like that. So you have to consider that when you think of streaming, like a Netflix stream, you sit in front of the TV set, and this is static, right? So, and you have a constant stream from a server to your TV set or to your laptop. When you think about AR, you stream into space. So you stream into space. Also, the person viewing the stream is constantly moving, is moving around, is kind of moving his head or her head. And so this is super complex challenge to solve. So this means there's a lot of machine learning and AI required to kind of predict to predict what the user is going to do. So in order to have like a stable hologram that's being streamed in real time from your server. So and that's what the team is researching on for years, and it's keep improving. And it's already. I wouldn't say we're at a stability level like a local rendering, but I'd say we're like a 90+% range already. So and of course you have the big benefit of like a much higher fidelity. And the second point, as you talked about obstacles and challenges, of course, streaming is resource intense. So in order to really encode a 3D model into a video stream, this requires significant CPU power. CPUs are not cheap, and this means it's totally fine when you have like a few people on the show floor, on the factory floor, when you have a limited number of concurrent users. But if you want to scale to like hundreds of users, you need to have significant infrastructure in your facility in order to be able to render all that. So of course, that's a natural obstacle. It's like cost and infrastructure.
Okay, I really need to see the latest status on streamed content. But let's jump into the future before we go to the variables questions. Like Tim, do you have plans or like strategies 5 to 10 years from now where you say, okay, in a time where every household will have a headset somewhere? I mean, the possibilities are limitless, right? So usually I need to drive to a dealership, which, sorry for the automotive clients, but they are always at the outside of the city, right? So I have to drive there, it sucks, then I go there, then I see a car that has not my color, and it's not my configuration, but I need to buy it like this. Basically, that's the reference I have. So, but the benefit is I sit at home, really lazy, put on my headset, bing, so I have the showroom in my living room. Is that something you're already taking into account, how that will affect your dealership network structure and how that will... I personally think I would use it to browse and look at my car and my dream car, and then I still would drive to the dealer to touch it or see it in real before I buy it. But is that something you're already incorporating in your plans, or is that just not there yet and you...
I think I can answer this quite general. I think this is a development that we've been seeing for many years, right? I mean, we're coming from an age where people were looking at catalogs. They were going to a dealership. They were interested in a car. They looked at the cars. They took a catalog with them home. Then they came back a few weeks later, and then they maybe ordered the car together with the dealer, right? Today we have mobile, we have websites, we have other experiences where people can get part of their questions that they have answered. This even is now obviously amplified with LLMs, for example, that give a lot of information to the people that they would have normally asked a dealer. So the role of the dealership is changing, and this is what you see. Especially when you look at car brands that don't have a huge active dealership but have to build it up now. You look at what they're doing. They're going into the city center. They're having smaller dealerships, but nevertheless they know they need dealerships for something, right? But what they cannot offer is that they show the full range. Obviously, they can show 2 or 3 cars, maybe a few more, but looking at the range that some of our brands have, you cannot show everything. And if you cannot show something, you can sometimes not sell it. And to look at the truth of selling cars as well, you make a lot of money with the extras. So it is actually an important point to let people see something, whether that be in virtual reality or whether that will be at a dealership. I think that will be growing together. And also, as we are looking that the websites are changing, that people are using, I was just referring, and I need to say this a bit because it's a heartbreaking topic for me. People are not using the website that much anymore because they're using LLMs a lot to get the questions answered. But then we ask ourselves, what's the role of the website in the future? And my answer always is, okay, if the people get the facts from in the form of text through ChatGPT or whatever, then maybe we need to amplify the visual experience in a way. And one answer to that obviously could be that we do it more immersive than it was in the past. So maybe we won't call it website, but maybe this part of the customer journey that needs to be satisfied in a way can actually play a bigger role with immersiveness.
Cool, thank you. Martin, for you, like I can imagine when the streaming thing is finally at its peak and it's working. So I guess it holds a huge benefit, right? So because we as the developers, we don't need to, I don't know, deploy an app for Meta, Apple, Pico, whatever. We just build one web or whatever internet application and it's going to be streamed. So in a perfect world, we don't need to really build apps anymore, right? It's an incremental piece of software that is deployed to all the screens in the future. Is that something you guys working on, looking at and see that's coming someday? Like that you don't build apps anymore for certain devices, just build a virtual app and stream it to all the devices? Is that a thing? Is that on the roadmap?
Well, yes. So that's not the roadmap.
Okay.
That's the roadmap topic. So that's actually something. One of the key benefits of like using Stream, right? So that in an enterprise you might have different device types from different makes. You might have like VR devices, mixed reality devices, see-through devices. As you mentioned, they have different SDKs, right? And but that's exactly the kind of investment Hololight does to integrate with Horizon OS and with Android XR and with some and with OpenXR and just to kind of take this heavy lifting off our customers, so they can simply have like one application. They have one SDK. This translate the 3D asset and the application logic into a stream, and that's being executed on the respective device, and that's one of the key benefits of using streaming. Okay. So just like in a kind of regular movie watching thing, right? That you don't have like different like as you had previously like a Flash client and some local clients, but you have just your browser, and that's very comparable here.
So for the young people out there that are entering our industry, they don't need to care so much whether they develop for Snap now, their new platform, or Meta or Pico, whatever they or Unity or whatever. They just have in the future one single source of truth, and that's going to be streamed, basically. And really simple.
Well, yes and no. So streaming, as I said, streaming has like many advantages, but of course it also has costs involved. Yeah, so there are certain experiences that probably should run locally.
Well, we talk about the future. I mean, the price needs to
look at Amazon Prime and Netflix. Everything is streamed these days, and in future XR will be streamed.
Okay. Yeah.
And as like infrastructure and devices are not there yet, the adopters are the enterprise, and they are actively using Stream, which is very exciting for us.
Okay, then let's talk about the new kid in the block, wearables or smart glasses, AI glasses, where you, I don't know what you prefer. For us right now in the developer economy, it's a little tricky, right? Because we put so much effort into our experiences and what we've done in the past, and now there's this new device, and it's basically just a camera thing, and we don't need XR, but it's inevitable, so it's coming definitely. But Tim, like, how do you see the future for smart glasses? Like, what could be a use case with wearables? So how is Volkswagen looking at that, and as a group? Like, how is it like I have my pair of glasses and ask what car is it? Because that's probably answered by the general AI. But what are some use cases you guys looking at when you look at smart glasses?
I think there's two pillars of it. There's first of all the pillar, what happens if the customer is having this device, right? And to really make an estimation of this makes sense, we have to see how many devices are really being sold, right? How many people are here today who are wearing one of these, right? And we are the target group. So there's still room to grow on the consumer side. If we look on the enterprise side, or on what if we use as a company, if we use this as an enhancement, I'd say definitely there's big use cases already, and I would wish
what kind of
that
them?
also
Like, specifically, like,
I
I want to develop something.
all of the ideas
give
that
us
we
one.
have in our brainstorms, because we want to be the first ones, you know.
Give us something.
No,
like,
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that basically, what are we talking about? We're talking about a device who, in parts, can do what our mobile is doing. Right? We're looking at our mobile too much time of the day, and a lot of these things we can do better things with our hands, and we can basically either use voice and sound, or we use a small display to do our tasks. And there's so many things, obviously, in production. Obviously, when you have contact with clients where you need additional information, but also, just to understand things around the car, things around menus that you're reading. I could go on and on. The question really is looking at each business case. Is this doable, right? Does it somehow make sense? Would it be cool? Yes. But is it something where we can build a business case? Are the costs? Are the costs okay? Can we actually get people on board that want to try this? Do we have, for example, dealers, or do we have people in the manufacturing that are interested in this, or are we doing something that no one really needs? Right. So each use case you have to look at very specifically, and then try some things and test and learn. And this is exactly what we do with VR as well. You have to come from the problem, right? You should not say, same with AI. Everybody is saying, hey, we need to do more AI. That's good. AI is an amplifier, but we need to think about a problem. What are our main problems? We need to have in our mind what is AI, what is VR, what is smart glasses capable of doing, what does it do better, and then overlay those two things and find out where we have the best match.
All right, but like, I imagine the perfect use case. I wear my glasses. I get those illustrations of really important information, like how fast I'm going and all those things that are in the dashboard. Is it like feasible to assume in the future you don't have a dashboard anymore because you have your glasses? Why do I need screens in the car? And is a company of the size of Volkswagen or companies like Stellantis, are they talking to their governments? Because I think that has implications, right? So I'm wearing a digital device on my head and it shows me information in terms of distractions. Is it something you already started to do, or?
We had this use case, for example, with Audi. We showcased this at the IAA last year, and also I think we launched it a bit earlier already. But this is exactly those things that I could not answer if I would want to have it, right? That's depending on what is the glasses actually capable of. Does it add something, right? If it does the same as using a button. We had the experience, for example, that, just like many other manufacturers as well, we put a lot of screens in the car, right? We had fewer buttons, we had more screens. Everybody had screens, right? We found out actually people like buttons sometimes, right?
I do.
And I like to have a button as well to put on volume quite quickly, lower or higher up. And this is the exact same question that we need to ask ourselves with the technology. Just because we can do it, we should not automatically say we need to.
Okay. Martin, I remember when you were still at Qualcomm, at some CES or something, they announced that they have now chips for the cars as well. And then there was this company, Hololight, I guess. They said they could do in-car entertainment, and the cool thing is that it moves accordingly to the car. And actually, I said, what the fuck? I mean, when you build the chips, those could do the thing. So from the good thing about Martin, he knows everyone and knows the beat of the street, as they say. What is your insight of the automotive industry? What is something we're gonna see that's gonna be new? Like, are there new devices? Are there now for the Meta Ray-Ban, for example, they are connected to my personal device, right? So is it maybe that the new version of the car is directly connected to my headset, so it's not the personal device anymore? Is there anything you can give us a sneak peek on from your... You can give us some
No,
as well.
it's just like, so there are many developments on multiple sites that are merging, converging at some point, right? So think about the AI assistant, and it's either like the AI assistant in my car or the AI assistant on my nose. So this means there are lots of technologies being leveraged. And it's no coincidence why Qualcomm has heavily invested like in wearables, but also in automotive, because they believe there are similar aspects there. I think there's a massive difference in the user interface, so that's also why Qualcomm has like spent lots of money on acquiring a company that does a digital chassis. So like in the user interface, so it's interesting that a chip maker is now kind of moving up the value chain and really investing heavily in a digital chassis type production. But again, all connected in the Qualcomm way, right? So Qualcomm has like an audio technology that's being moved into like speakers and things like that. So there are lots of technology trends and technology investments on multiple devices and outlets that are merging, and I think that's what we're going to see a lot. So see those trends come together.
And if I want to add one thing, the development cycle of automotive is a very, very long cycle. So if you want to really implement some very new technology, or you really want to change something, it takes years in advance that you need to plan this. And this is one of the reasons why sometimes it's a plug-in solution for things like Hololight, for example, where you would naturally think, hey, why don't you bring these things together at the beginning, right? That simply has to do with very long production cycles as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now I want to give the audience the possibility to ask some question, ask those two experts here, and try to get some more information and insights.
I've got a question about the other use cases. So the showroom is an obvious use case, but there's other cases I've heard in the auto industry that a lot of the executives, for example, have never been in a showroom. They've never had to buy a car through a showroom experience. So are there other opportunities outside of this by informing how Gen Z goes through the customer journey to buy a car? Or maybe the R&D, for example. Maybe you've got new prototypes and you can actually, with voice interface, talk through VR, seeing the prototype, give feedback directly to the designers that are actually designing the new prototypes and the new concepts. Right? What are the other cases that you're outside the showroom?
Yeah, I think great ideas already. I can write them down. Fun aside, I'm not an expert on every department, obviously, and I think this is the main thing. You have to talk to the people that are actually in the departments and see what is their challenges, right? And then see how can this add at the beginning of the day. We saw this early in design. We saw people were visually doing this, and we see this from our side, as I say, from the dealership, but we have it in manufacturing as well. We have it in training. We have it in training our dealers as well. So lots of use cases we have. I think the big question is, which is really the use cases that are really scalable and that are really not just a POC, because one of the major challenges that I always see is always how do we keep the content up to date, right? We get a budget, you do a project, you have a POC, you have data that is current for 1 year. What do you do afterwards, right? And then you have the headset, maybe you have shipped 500 headsets somewhere. How can you actually maintain that this is actually of use in 3 years' time still, without having to buy new headsets or without having to get new software and complicated processes? So yeah, I think
really, it's always a question for me. Like if you sell one more car because of the headset, I mean, the invest is back, right?
You will always have a controller who's saying, but you would have sold it anyway, right? Okay. So there is not this one car that the people are going to say, I bought this car because I tried the VR headset and I would never buy it without it. That's unfortunately, it's a long customer journey influenced by a lot of points, by a lot of peers, and we are adds a lot, but unfortunately, we don't have a buy button there yet.
Hello. First of all, the glasses are not the only devices for us to augment something. We can use our phones, and mostly I am using my phone while buying furniture. But my question is coming, as a developer, we are developing augmented reality applications for 10 years, but at some point, for example, we have different industry, but at some point, the developers will need your designs, step files, STL files. I don't mean the exact file, but loose one. Has Volkswagen plans to give these things to developers to develop their augmented reality applications of the engineers? Am I clear? For example, I want to give oil change procedure. There is you need to open somewhere and put oil. Further, I think that my application is only this. But at some point, I need your sketch or something like this. So one of the biggest manufacturer of the car, how can we reach this data?
Good question. I would pass it on to my IT colleagues. No, fun aside, obviously we have this data. It's at the end of the day, a lot of it is data that's coming straight from construction. So that's why it's also kind of a sensitive data. That's why most of it is not giving out. But if we work on projects, it's quite easy to get the first data set. You then have to see, okay, are we going to work with what kind of software? And sometimes we have to convert it on, obviously. But wherever we work with a supplier, we get them the data without any issues.
I mean, otherwise, you guys use TurboScript, right? If on such platforms, the cars are out as soon as they are public available. Obviously, you don't get them before they publicly release, but after that, it's fairly easy to get the data. Yeah. There was
another question from the audience?
in the first row.
First row? Thank you. Sorry, can you?
Was in there. You mentioned that the first time you did this in the dealerships, it wasn't so successful, and then people are kind of scared and say like, oh, if it didn't work once, it will never work. Obviously, the business condition changed because now there are no cars in the showroom, so you have a different demand for actually, I need to show anything, right? But other than this and the maturity of the technology, what do you think that was the learning that made the first use case not successful, while the second time it was, more of a business success?
It's hard to say if there's one thing. First of all, we still have cars in the dealership. It was just sometimes we have a new car coming, sure, which is about to launch, and then we don't, for example, have this current model yet in the dealership. It will, though, come later on. It's been a few years ago. I think it was the first headsets from Quest back then that were used for this use case. And as I said, it's hard to say what was the game changer. I think people were not really ready for it. The dealers were maybe not trained 100% on this. It's very, very important to get the people on board and to get people excited that are actually doing this with their clients. Because if the dealer is seeing this as a problem, or rather, oh, I'm losing the connection to my client when I use this, then they are not going to use it because they have the sale obviously in their head. And if they think, hey, this is a client that I know for a long time. If I talk about our house and our kids and the dog and that for 20 minutes, and then for another 20 minutes I show him the newest car and I give him a sneak preview in the new one, which is still under the cover, then he already buys it, then he knows how to do it, right? But certainly there is also, and this is, I haven't said this before, I think a major step that has also been done for us in marketing and for our management is through the Vision Pro, because we have a major tech player that has been entering the field, that has been putting their stamp on it, that showed something that everybody wanted to try. I know everybody in the management, they were like, hey, can we try it? And those were the people that were always saying, yeah, seen this. But as soon as Apple came, everybody had attention to this as well. So that helped. And yeah, to answer your question, I think the quality and things like mixed reality that really added a lot to it.
I think there's also something there's saying timing can kill or scale ideas, right? And I guess Audi was very early, but I still admire it. And the cool thing is, I looked at the case and I said, okay, what was not working back in the days? And obviously a big headset, it's really heavy, then connected to computer and cable. So not really cool you could only sit, and standing up was already difficult when you walk around and want to see the cars. Then you had these controllers, really difficult. Now you have hand tracking, you see something, you touch it. And then it's a configuration. Oh boy, they integrated every single configurable aspect of the car. So imagine you sitting there with this big, almost helmet cable on, this complicated controllers, and then to see your car, you had to undergo all those individual steps and change that, then that is changed. And basically what we learned is simplified, right? Also, obviously we now have video pass-through, so you don't feel disconnected. We have standalone headsets, and we had controller-less things, and a very minimalistic configuration, because what really made a difference for people to say, that's my car, is just changing the color and wheels. That's all it takes, because I like my car in white or black. I don't want to go through every single aspect of this navigation. I do that on the counter with your experts or on the website. So I think the biggest thing was timing. They were just too early, but the lesson is one needs to look at why they failed and wait until those factors are solved by innovation. Yeah.
Mine is a bit related to the question before, regarding the 3D pipeline on the CAD models as well. So for Tim, what would you say? We have already developed also a few apps like the Porsche Visualizer for Porsche, for example, and there was always the problem getting a stable 3D pipeline that contains all the new cars and all that gets delivered into the application and that you can distribute to all the devices. And is there any effort in creating a stable base for such XR experiences or VR experiences to provide the cars to all the different devices that you want to show them on?
Not that I would know of, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't do it. As you mentioned the use case of Porsche, obviously we have a few brands. So it's possible that it's there, but honestly, I think we have to look at what scales as well, right? If we know everybody's going to have a headset in next year, then obviously we would do something. But you have to look at the costs and then see what makes sense. But to be honest, I don't know.
But Joshua, I can imagine a future where we don't really need the data anymore, because it's somewhere captured with Gaussian splitting or whatever, and you just say, show me the new Porsche, and it will be created. So it's not even... Yeah, but you know how good it gets,
he has a
right?
point, and the thing is, if you really want to build a configurator, it's hell, because there's I don't know how many thousands parts that need to be in the configurator to actually be able to have it a real configurator. Most of the times, it's just like a tiny version of the configurator who gives you an idea. And yeah, that's doable. But if you really want to say we want to have every part in there, that's hell. You know it.
My question was regarding the actual user experience. From our experience developing applications for customers for this kind of purpose, usually your target audience that you're trying to sell to is not your typical XR device user. And as in any sales kind of activity, you have probably first couple of minutes until you have the first few minutes to get the customer's interest, and usually you spend those first 2 or 3 minutes well, even more, explaining to the customer how to use the headset. So you kind of, it becomes counterproductive. So I was curious how you overcome these challenges in the, for example, existing applications. I know setting up Apple Vision Pro for a customer takes a few minutes already. So that's the
Excellent point, and I think this is one of the pain points. You don't want to have the sales conversation stopped or being disrupted or something like that. And again, it depends on the kind of car that you want to sell and on the target group as well. I couldn't imagine like a 20-minute lead time until you explained, for example, let's say the Vision Pro to a customer and really have everything adjusted, and then you start configuring for for a small, cheap car that's very comparable, that's maybe 1 out of 5 in its relevant set. But if you think, for example, at a luxury car, let's think about when people buy a Bentley. I think the average time that they spend configuring the car with the dealer is, I think, between 2 or 3 hours. There it is actually, it's an event to go to the dealership. You really take your time and you have a lot of personal time with the dealer. And if in this case you say, hey, we can do something special, I can offer you, I can show you the new model already, then it will maybe make more sense.
Great. We have time for one last question.
Let me hear, like, Martin and Tim, like, the next device we should be aware of. I think who spent here a couple of days knows that Pico has something cooking, right? So watch out for Pico, we could say. Then rumors are big on Snap having something like they announced already or indicated. Is there like anything else we should watch out for? But baseline is Matter, it's granted, right? But is there anyone we should look out for? Did you hear anything? Can you give the audience or their colleagues a hint where to look to? Like, is there any other device we should be aware of?
Well, I think all the big guys are now kind of working on something significant. So I think the Ray-Ban stories really set an example and really kind of guarantee sales numbers and budget, which is nice. So this means all the big ones are gonna do something. If you kind of want to get like the sneak preview thingy, so if you look who has been acquired by Google in the past year, so I think it's a very strong indicator that something's going to come out there in the not so far future. And you already mentioned like Spectacles. It's a great device. You should check it out downstairs. This is the dev kit, and they already announced they're going to have like a commercial edition come out in 26. So I'm very much looking forward to this one as well.
You are the experts. I cannot say anything about the technical thing too much, but I think let's not look too much on more pixels, on speed, on resolution, on all of these things. I think the game changer that can speed it up is obviously AI. AI works great if data is in the background, and that's why I keep an eye on Google.
Great. Thank you so much for joining our last session. Applause to Team Camillo and Martin.